All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I want to welcome you to our College Bound Today Mentor Kickoff. So this is our second year doing this, and it was really successful here at Los Osos Middle School last year, and I can tell it's going to be very successful this year. We have a bundle of kids that are going to be excited to be working with you, and we're kind of actually continuing to grow our kid count. So first I want to introduce this team up here. So Maribel Chavez is our counselor. She's a counselor at Baywood.
I'm at Baywood and Sealsmith.
And so she's here as kind of the liaison for a lot of our families, and she's helped develop the curriculum last year with our counselor here at Los Osos Middle School, Denise Baca. I'm Carl Bloom. I'm the principal here at Los Osos Middle School, and this is my second year as principal. I got my introduction in principalship in the beginning of COVID, so it wasn't really sitting in Zoom for 8 hours a day. It was kind of a weird thing, but we're back to a lot more normal, and I'll share more about that in a minute.
Okay, good morning. I'm Andy Castillo, former high school college counselor, and in education for 38 years, but retired in 2015, so I like it. And I live in the Los Angeles area in the city of Whittier, and I've known Dan for 12 years when we started the program at my high school. So that's College Bound Today, started in the high school.
13 years.
13?
13.
Oh, jeez. No. But we know it works, okay? And we're trying it now. Something new started last year here with the 8th graders. So we're trying to just get them, make them aware. And your roles are going to be so important. And once we build that relationship. So the whole issue is building that student-mentor relationship, okay? So anyway, I'm glad to be here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to see all of you here. We got everybody here except for two husband and wife retired. They're on the East Coast, so the last name is Haber. But we also have two guests with us. We have my neighbor, Maggie Hendricks. Just raise your hand, okay? And we have David Preston right here. So we have two potential new mentors who are here to observe. So your job is to help them decide the right way. But anyway, it's a pleasure having them and all of you, and you'll get to hear more about each other soon. I'm very excited. It's such a fantastic group of adult volunteer members of the community to work with our young people here. Carl is, I worked with a lot of administrators. Andy was my first administrator down in Montebello in 2008. Carl is one of my more recent ones, and I know a good administrator and a good teacher when I see one. I'm a latecomer to education. I was a trial lawyer for 31 years down in LA. In 2008, co-founded this program, been doing this ever since. But Carl is a dynamo. He's a great leader. He inspires kids. They listen to him. He's got a really great demeanor with them. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's just a force of nature in this school. So we are so lucky to have his leadership here. Andy is a very, very skillful, experienced college counselor. Down at Sure High School, when we started there were 2,800 kids there, about 800 or 900 in each class. And he was the college counselor that dealt with that entire school. And he did a great job. Those kids knew who he was. We have another veteran counselor who's not here today, whose name is Jose Suarez. And like Andy, he's a very experienced college counselor. He went to Pitzer. He was the high scorer on the Bell Gardens High School soccer team. Went to Pitzer, then he got 2 masters in educational counseling. So we have that's like our brain trust. And these guys will either Zoom or like Ace last night, he and his wife drove up here. So we have a very solid college counseling presence as a backbone of what we do when the kids get to high school. But so they have been collaborating, as Carl said, with Maribel and with Denise Baca, who's a counselor at this school. And those two know the students, and Maribel knows a lot of their parents, and so knows the families, because Baywood Elementary feeds this school. So it's a great combination. Last year together they prepared an 8th grade curriculum, which we'd never done before. So we have, along with Carl, we have a superstructure that's really, really supportive of everything you do. Once a month you'll be meeting, you'll have a discussion guide that... Time's up, Dan. All right. All right, okay, sorry. Anyway, thanks for being here. If you can't tell, I'm really excited that you're here, all right?
It's either him talking or those emails.
All right. No, and real huge thanks to Dan, because he brought this program here to the Central Coast and to the coastal community, and this is a neat thing. So let me talk a little bit first about the current high school prep and what we do at LOMS to get kids ready for high school. I think that's going to frame a lot of why we have you as part of this and why we're making this part of a coastal program for our kids. So at LOMS, some of you have had kids go through here, and you know that we, and recently in the last 5 or 6 years, we started doing a lot of different outreaches to the community. So our 8th graders would often go off with a teacher who has since retired, but we're going to continue these trips to local businesses and check them out. They'd go to like ACI Jet. They'd go to like the Google, the Amazon place. They go to the Slow Hot House, and they'd see all these examples of the things they're learning in middle school and how it applies to future life, right? So they get these kind of like CTE, career tech ed pathway trips, we called them. Our 7th graders will go, and we're going to do this, we're excited about doing this again in March, go to Cuesta College on a Friday. And for all of you that went to college, you know, I remember going to school like Friday, oh, I got 3 Friday classes, what a bummer. Now these kids, they go to school Monday through Thursday. Friday is like, what? Nobody goes to school on Friday. So there's a skeleton crew of kids and staff at Cuesta, and it makes an opening for us to have a day in the life of Cuesta for our 7th graders. And like I know Everett has gone, and Mr. Cuenta, your kids had gone, I think, the day in the life of Cuesta. We obviously didn't do it during COVID, but the program is basically they'll go into the Cougar radio station and do a broadcast. And they get in groups of like 10. And they'll go around to the PE department and someone kicks their butt in a workout. And they go to the observatory and they go into the television station. They see the bronzing and the art and the metallurgy side of the art program. And it's just awesome. And then we have a huge pizza lunch in the main kind of like area there by the flagpole at Cuesta. And they come back and they're like, wow, college is cool. I'm serious. It's just amazing. And you know, so that preps them towards the end of their 7th grade year for 8th. And our 6th graders, we don't have a big push towards that yet, but they do a field trip too. And typically they've gone to Hearst Castle. This year we're trying to figure out how we can get them to the tech and the science museum up in San Jose, because we know these kids have lost a lot and missed a lot. So we're trying to get that back. So, but our 8th graders, when Dan came to me with this idea about College Bound today, Mr. Waldman, who's at Morro Bay High, connected me with Dan because he was our mock trial coach, and he's like, you gotta talk to Dan. Like, he's got this cool program. So I checked in with Dan, and I realized this would be a great thing because mentoring is one of the goals of our district. Establishing mentoring programs it's not the first and foremost goal, but it's right there. They want to start building these mentorship opportunities, and through the San Luis Foundation, which is the fundraising arm or the private nonprofit that was established about 5 years ago, Jim, right? They are working towards like figuring out how to get mentoring programs in. So with College Bound today, and when Dan will give you the history of it, we decided to try it here in 8th grade, and then have an abbreviated program, not as robust as they would see as their junior and senior year in high school, but tie it into one of the key things we started doing at LOMS about 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, we started something called the high school 4-year plan. And this is something I've never seen in a middle school anywhere, let alone mostly in any even high schools. But myself, my counselor, and our principals at the time would sit down with kids starting in January for like a 30-minute meeting and talk about, okay, you're almost done with middle school. What do you want to do in high school? And you know, you get the gamut of the kid that's like, I'm going to study and focus on math and engineering, and I'm going to go to an Ivy League school. My school's Dartmouth. That's where I'm going, right? And you're like, whoa. And then you get the other kid that walks in and goes, what's high school, right? Like the whole gamut. And so we have these meetings with kids from January through February, and it takes a while to march through the entire 180 kids that are 8th graders. But we have these intimate, focused conversations about them. And we build out their high school schedule, especially the core subjects. We don't do electives for the junior and senior year because so many of them change what they're doing once they get to high school and they figure it out. Like the kid who's a non-athlete in middle school picks up sports, and all of a sudden what we thought was a great pathway has now changed because they're adding athletic PE instead of some other elective or something. So we build out this idea of the 4-year plan, but in that we also say, what are your interests beyond high school? Because the goal here in San Luis Coastal and every school district K-12 is to get them to the next step. And we have talks about what Cuesta offers and the Cuesta Promise Grant and how community colleges can serve them. We talk about 4-year schools. We tell them the difference between a 2-year, a 4-year, a trade school. And so we really try to open their eyes to this. And then this is all documented now it's different than when your kids were here. It's documented in their Aries portal. So as a parent and a student, they can go in and adjust it. So I've had kids go through the 4-year plan and tell me like whatever they're going to tell me, and then their parents go, wait, that's not what we've talked about in our home. Like they're going to do something more robust. I said, well, then go in and make the adjustments there. And the kid's like not signing up for the advanced class, and the kid's not so packing as many electives as they can with hardly any core classes. And so the parents, kids can access this. It's adjustable all the time for them, so that when they get ready to schedule the following year, whatever they do when they check with their counselors, the counselors can say, is that the schedule that you had? Because that lines up with your goals. And if it's not, they'll say, oh, I think we need to adjust this class here and that. And boom, then they lock them and they go. So this program, the 4-year plan process for our 8th graders, the goal is to obviously get them with a huge insight. And ultimately, it's to become advocates for themselves so that they are talking to their high school counselor and saying, no, I don't want that path. I want to do this because that's our job, is to get kids to be self-advocates. So when they step out of 12th grade and their nests, they can do that successfully. And so that's kind of what we do at LOMS for college prep for kids and high school prep. That's why we have this program infused, so that we can establish you to work with these kids. And I know Dan's told you the goal is to have you work with this group of kids this year, follow them to 9th grade next year, maybe 10th, maybe some of you are going to go for it and go all the way to 12th grade, and help them progress towards their work. And so the kids that we have in the program are a variety of kids. We have kids from fairly well-to-do families or college-educated families. We have kids who are in our AVID program. We have kids who come from first or no generation family members in college across the spectrum. We've got about 23 signed up right now, and I'm individually targeting kids in our AVID program and our AVID Excel program to join us. Sometimes that takes the principal to sit with you at lunch and have a talk about it and why it's beneficial, and I want you to give this a try. So we're growing that capacity as we go. And that's really what this benefit is it's another opportunity for kids to hear from people who have been down the road, who some of you work at Cuesta or in the university systems and things like that, and to share those experiences and to let them know that, like, this is totally attainable, because in many of the families that don't have any experience going to college, or very limited amount, the conversations are very different than the families who sit at the dinner table and talk about what you're going to do after high school and what school you might be interested in. It's more like, what are you doing after high school? And they're probably not even asking those questions, right? They're not talking about what you're doing after high school. They're looking at the next day. What are you doing tomorrow? And so I know for me, growing up in my family, my dad went to Michigan and was a thesis short of a PhD in engineering, and my mom was a school teacher in middle school. So for us, the conversations were just, where do you want to go? Have you thought about this? Your fallback will always be Fullerton JC if you can't figure out where you want to go. And they were fine with whatever we chose. So that's this program. I'm going to pass this to Dan to give you a little more of a global history of it. Now you can get going.
Be careful with your permission. 2008, I co-founded this program with a man by the name of Todd Clark, who had for 30 years been executive director of the Constitutional Rights Foundation, which is the nonprofit in LA that runs statewide mock trial and statewide history day. It's one of the flagship nonprofit educational organizations working with public schools in the state. He was a lifelong educator. He had designed this program, and I said, hey, I'm trying to get into the nonprofit sector. He said, funny you should come by now because I'm getting ready to retire. Here's what I want to do when I grow up. I got this mentoring program. So it's Todd's design, and it works very well. We, over an 11-year period in 5 high schools in Montevallo Unified, we had more than 1,300 kids finish our program. They all graduated from high school. More than 99% of them went to college. 85% of them went to a 4-year college, which is very unusual in East LA. And 85% of them were free or reduced lunch. 91% of them were Latino, and 75% of them were first generation. So, and Andy and other counselors would select the students, put them in teams, sprinkle the high performers all the way across, and then backfill it with kids who were like in the bottom half of their class. A lot of peer learning, very effective. And with the team design, as I've explained to most of you when we met privately before today, we have 3 mentors working with a group. We're actually designed, we can take 10 students for every team of 3 mentors. That's been our ratio. That's worked okay. You just heard Carl say that there's maybe 23, 24 kids. That means you'll have 6. We have 4 teams, so there'll be 6 students assigned to each of you 3 mentors. So you'll be sort of 2 on 1. And so each one of them, there's at least 1 male, 1 female on every team. Each young person will have a choice. They'll say, well, there's 3 of these adults, like, who do I want to spend some time with? So you aren't forced, if you have at random 1 adult and 1 young person, you put them together in a room, sometimes they just don't get along very well. And sometimes the conversation can be real short. This program is designed to encourage roundtable discussions by the entire team for 60 or 90 minutes once a month. And the goal is to keep the students talking. So you've got 2 colleagues, you work together to tag team to try to follow up on what's been said. And we'll give you every month what we call discussion guide, a list of topics that we'd like you to discuss. But if you get a kid who gets completely excited about their grandmother's lasagna recipe, go for it. Whatever they're talking about, if it doesn't matter what we say, we'd like you to talk about, go with that. Because the more engaged you can get them, that's your goal. And then the monthly meetings, our counseling staff and Carl and I will put together, we call it a discussion guide. Teachers call it a lesson plan. You should get that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days before each monthly meeting. You'll have it, you hopefully will read it, think about it, and when you arrive at 9 o'clock, for our meetings, we'll spend an hour, just like we're doing now, just with mentors, no students. We'll go over the discussion guide. We'll go over the exercises we want you to do in your groups and stuff like that. And then ask questions, and hopefully there's a little time ahead of time to socialize, because the goal of this program, the team is that you get to meet two people in the community who you don't know already, maybe, and you know, so you sort of, you know, you get to know each other, and you get curious about how they're, you know, how's your dog doing or whatever. So it's a social experience for the mentors. You get to bounce ideas with your colleagues off of each other about, well, what, you know, we heard this kid say this, you know, that troubles me. What strategy can we put together? So it's not just you and little Frankie trying to get little Frankie into UCLA or something like that. And of course, at the 8th grade, college is not our goal. We're trying to motivate these kids and give them an opportunity to develop a friendship with adults who are not their parent, teacher, coach, minister, but you know, who are in the community and just want to help them. And it's a unusual opportunity that kids don't get otherwise. And so you guys deliver.
Let me say one thing. And remember, in middle school, if you remember those days, or you remember parenting through middle school, we often become some of the least intelligent creatures as parents on the planet, right? The kids often don't want to listen. They give you, what did you do in school today? Nothing, right? So sometimes working with someone else that they build a rapport with, they'll open up, they'll talk more. It's hilarious. You know, I just have great conversations with kids all the time, and I just have to think that sometimes they're way more than I'm getting out of them than their parents are.
And that just one other thing that reminds me of, and I'm sure those of you who are educators are sensitive to this. Our role as mentors, we don't tutor. We give advice, and we try to set a role model, and we encourage kids to do well. Well, in your meetings and in your interactions, you may come across a student who has a significant problem going on at home. You might hear about some violence, or you might hear about some significant personal problem. That is not up to us to do anything about. If you hear anything like that, console a student, get in touch with me, and I'll get in touch with Carl, and the counseling staff here will deal with that. It's not our job. You know, our first year at Sherrill High School, one of the girls got pregnant in our program. Not our job. Just get the word to me, and we'll get it to the school, and they know how to deal with that very well. And we respectfully would urge you to draw that line. I'm sure you know where it is.
We'll talk more, because we've got to talk about that as we get down here.
Okay.
You're jumping the gun, Dan.
I'm sorry.
You're excited. You're excited. All right. So I think our next piece is, any questions so far, just on kind of like the program and the kind of what the scope and what the goal is, or anything like that? Awesome. So now I feel like it's a middle school class. Nobody wants to ask a question. There we go. All right. So right now we want to introduce everybody and make sure people know each other in this cohort that we have. So we have like a whole group icebreaker here we're going to do. We just like you to, we'll pass the mic around, and just, you don't have to stand, you can just sit there and just acknowledge who you are, what your background is, your life and education, like basically 1 minute or less per person as we go around the room.
Start with Gina.
I feel like I should stand up. Hi, I'm Gina McNamara, and I was an English teacher, and I was an administrator, and now I get to work with leaders in the Central Valley. So I'm in Fresno. I have a house in Fresno and a house here in Los Osos, and so I like to spend as much time here as possible. So this is a good I was telling her earlier, I said, when I come over to the Y where the 41 and the 46 meet, my shoulders drop about an inch. And I really feel it here. So I love it. I grew up coming over here a lot. My uncle lives in Cayucas, so we spent a lot of time here. My daughter played and went to school at Cuesta, so she played water polo there. So we've spent a lot of time over here. So that's my life in a minute.
I'm Lisa Gonzalez. I've lived in this area about 25 years. I have my own business in San Luis. I'm an enrolled agent, which means I'm licensed by the Internal Revenue Service to do taxes. So today is the very last day that you can file an electronic return. So I have to get to the office this afternoon. To finish up the last, if there's anybody who's decided. Otherwise, it's going into the great hole of the IRS, which everybody's familiar with right now. My degree, I went to Stanford. I was a history major. I did a master's in history at UC Riverside and an MBA at Redlands. So I'm active in the community. I'm on a number of boards of directors. If you live in Los Osos, you may get your water from the CSD. And if you do, I'm on your financial advisory committee. I know Jim because I work with his wife at Los Osos Cares, which is a community service organization. And the Y has I'm on the Y board of directors, and they have a after-school program at Baywood. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty tuned into what's going on. Okay.
Hi, I'm David Preston. New to the area, I've only been up here about 3 years. My wife and I live right close to the Elfin Forest on 15th Street. I don't know very many people at all, so what? Taught sociology at San Diego State for a lifetime. Happy to be done with that. I'm a guest here because I'm kind of lazy at filling out forms, I think, because I am committed to doing it. And I look forward to working with all you folks and the kiddos, including you folks. Sorry, my back is to you. And anyway, I look forward to the program and working with you.
Good morning. My name is Ellie Moget. Let's see. I'm retired. I worked with the CAL FIRE for about 32 years, 32 seasons. And now I'm a stay-home mom and a housewife, which I really enjoy. And I'm pretty involved with the community. I just recently joined the Kiwanis here in Los Osos. I'm pretty involved with the yacht club in Morro Bay as well, with their junior sailing program. And I just really enjoy sailing myself. And then with Pacific Wildlife Center, I've been with them for quite a few years. And then I also really enjoy the San Luis Museum of Art. I work with them as well. I do docent work for them. My son, Everett, is a 9th grader, and he was involved here with College Bound last year, and I thought it was a fantastic program. And I'm really, really excited about being a part of it and watching these kids grow and hopefully go into a higher education. I am an alumni from Cal Poly. I did business administration, although I never did anything with it because I remained in the fire service. And I did it thinking that if I ever had an injury in the fire service and I couldn't work with them anymore, that I'd branch out, I'd have something to fall back on. But I really enjoyed college, and I'm really a proponent for kids to go through that period because it just really, I think, changes your life. So anyway, thank you, and I'm really happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Scholars Ortiz. I have two boys actually that are attending 6th and 7th grade here. So I work at Cuesta College. I'm a financial aid specialist. I'm also the co-advisor to the Black Student Union there, and I'm the president to the Latina Leadership Network. In my spare time, I'm a graduate student at Cal Poly currently. I'm in the Higher Education Counseling Student Affairs program, and so I'll be finishing in June of 2023, hopefully. I was going to do it a little sooner, but I was recently hired at Cal Poly to be a coordinator for the Scholars Program. So I think that's everything.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gabriel Cuarenta Gallegos, but I go by Gavi. I am a math professor at Cuesta. I'm recent to the area. I came like 3 years ago. My son went through the middle school here, 6th through 8th. He's a 9th grader now. He's in the mock trial team, and Dan, I hadn't formally met him before, but I saw him at all the competitions, right? And we're so grateful for that group. They have created like an awesome team that I think is going to be really successful once they get to sophomores and junior, senior years. And I believe they even have a freshman on the varsity team or the competitive team. Let's see what else. Yeah, so why I was interested in this program is because actually I was part of a lot of little programs like this growing up as a migrant ed student, starting in 8th grade actually. So I went through programs that involve career. They actually placed us in jobs starting in 8th grade in different areas, and then all the way through high school. And then once I graduated from high school, I was also part of another program at the university level that was for underrepresented students in STEM. And so that really helped me through that portion of my education. I got a master's from Sacramento State in pure mathematics, and I also have a master's in secondary education from the University of Phoenix. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Good morning. I'm Keith Hannon. I was a pharmacist by trade or whatever. I worked as a pharmacist for 40 years. I had the medicine shop pharmacy in Los Osos for 30 years, or almost 30 years. The reason I got interested in this program is I was telling Dan, when I was a kid, I'm a first generation college educated child or whatever. And when I was a child, I didn't get the mentoring or the counseling that I think is so important for kids. And it actually cost me a year when I went to UCSB for a degree in chemistry. But I transferred from a junior college to there. I went to a counselor with my program or what I was planning on doing for that year, showed it to him. Sure, looks good. So I started in the semester, got good way into it, found out that I had to have gotten into organic chemistry as a prerequisite for everything else. And so it cost me a whole year because I had to wait to the next year to do that. And it was very frustrating, but I got through it and I got a degree in 5 years. Then I went to pharmacy school in Oregon State and got out of there, and I worked for LOMS Drugs for 10 years, and then I bought the medicine shop. I got 2 kids that went through college, and my daughter's now a naturopathic doctor, and my son's a project manager, director up in the Bay Area. So they've done really well, and but mainly the thing I'm here, the reason I got into it is because what I didn't get when I was a kid. And I felt that was a huge loss to me. And my parents, when I was growing up, you will go to college, but that was the extent of it. They didn't know how to do it. And so that's my goal, is to try to be able to help some other kids that maybe don't have the parents that know how to show them the way.
Thank you, Keith. Hi, I'm Jim Quessenberry. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 36 years, 14 in Southern California, Baldwin Park, and then later Sentinel Valley Union High School District. Came up here, taught for another 22 years at Morro Bay High School. My first teaching assignment was in Baldwin Park in the bilingual, bicultural Title VII pontoon program. And anyway, I retired 11 years ago, and I retired in June and then decided to run for the school board in July. So I served 8 years on the school board for this district. So when Carl referred to the San Luis Coastal Foundation, that's a board I sit on now. Been involved with this community for 33 years. Both my daughters went through the elementary schools here, the middle school, and the high school. So I'm very proud of my daughters. I have also 2 stepsons who went through the school system here and are doing quite well, I can report. So anyway, I have a strong connection, and I look forward to doing something. I did volunteer for a year with the AVID program here in the classroom. Somehow, some way, I just can't seem to get away from kids. And I will tell you, it was a nice transition for me to retire and continue to try to serve students. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. My name's John. Pardon me. I'm reaching the age where my voice is changing again. My name is John Lally. We're moved up here about 6 years ago from San Clemente. I've been retired for about 11 years now. I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals for the last 25 years in a variety of sales and sales management, and then contracting with large accounts, HMOs, PBMs, VA, that kind of thing. My interest in the program is complicated. I was a horrible student in high school, and it took me a couple of years of work, a couple of years in the Army to decide that education was probably pretty damn important for me. And my parents are both college graduates, so it wasn't a lack of encouragement or expectations on their part. So I understand the value of education. I understand the value of recognizing the value of it earlier in life rather than later. When I retired, I got involved with some student activities down in San Clemente. Did a little reading, remedial reading in some grade schools down there. I did homework with kids in the Boys and Girls Club. But the lack of resources, the lack of commitment, the lack of structure was very frustrating. And it wasn't of value to the kids, quite frankly. And I wasn't getting much out of it, and I felt bad about that. So when this opportunity came up here, I read about it in the paper and jumped on it. I thought this is a tremendous thing. When you have kids that are committed or interested and a support system behind them, parents, and you've got trained and quality mentors, which all of your backgrounds indicate, this seems like a can't-miss program that I just really want to be involved in. So I thank Dan for the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Thanks. My name is Sheridan Cole. I've, like John, in a way, I had parents. I grew up in education. Dad was a school superintendent, little town in Iowa, and I'm from Iowa originally, a Hawkeye. Been up in Los Osos only 3 years. We moved from LA from 3 years ago. I worked for the Los Angeles Unified School District for 37 years. Mostly I taught English, high school and junior high school. I started at Gompers Junior High one semester before the riot, we called it, the first one, the big one. broke out. And I know I went home to Iowa that summer, and all of a sudden the newspaper, the Des Moines Register, and Dad's reading, and he said, well, they showed this picture of where all this was going on. Well, Sheridan, isn't that where you teach? And I said, oh, yes, that's the corner. That's right there where it started. That's my school. Everything, and I'm going on, and, about a month later, I was getting ready to have to go back. And everybody in my little town said, are you going to go back there? I said, well, of course, my homeroom girls, they're with me for, how we stayed with our homeroom for 3 years until they graduated, and I couldn't let them down. And anyway, I ended up staying there for 6 years and then went on to high school and had great experiences at John Marshall High School. It's a great school in Los Angeles, and then got into continuation school as an administrator. And I love continuation school because, and especially it's interesting at Marshall, at the time I was there, it was such an academic school, and continuation school are basically a dropout prevention program, which I loved. And also then I became a principal there, and it's great. It's like a one-room schoolhouse, only it's with high school kids and older, and 100 kids, but you're like the principal, the teacher, the custodian. You clean them up when they throw up. I mean, you're the health person. It was really great. I stayed there for several years, and I retired from continuation school, and we moved up here 3 years ago, so I'm pretty new here. When I'm not involved in education, theater is my love, and I was actually a major in speech and drama with a minor in English and a master's in English, but I love theater, and I've been involved already up here, fortunately, until the pandemic. So I'm involved with by the Sea Players over here in Morro Bay. And anyway, we're enjoying it up here. So it's a different lifestyle. I miss LA. I still like LA, of course, but this is a new experience and enjoyable. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I've lived in Los Osos since 1994. My husband got a job at Cal Poly, but that's what brought us here. And when we first moved here, I got a job teaching in elementary school up in Cambria. And at the only school I know that's still called a Cambria Grammar School. And loved it. I taught in second grade, and I originally graduated from Chico State with a major in Spanish, not knowing what I'd ever do with it. But I took it because I decided I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I always enjoyed my Spanish classes. My Spanish teacher from high school was my inspiration. He's the one teacher that I connected really well with, and he made me feel like I mattered and I was special. So I think that really made a big difference in how much I enjoyed the class. When I got out of college, I wasn't really sure what I would do. I ended up working in San Francisco as an administrative assistant. And then later on, I started thinking, well, maybe I want to go get my credential. And maybe I should try to get a bilingual credential since I have my Spanish background. I'm not fully fluent in Spanish, but I enjoy it. And I do fairly well a good part of the time, depending on the day and how quick my mind is working. Then I did get my credential, my bilingual credential, and when we moved here to Cambria, I taught the reading program in Spanish to the Spanish speakers. I had my son. We have one son who went to school at Baywood and at this school, and I became a stay-at-home mom. Went back. I stopped teaching. When he was in high school, I went back and decided I wanted to substitute teach for a while. And I've just been substituting ever since. I really pretty much enjoy it. Then the main thing is I like the connection I can make with the kids. I really enjoy connecting with the kids and establishing a relationship with them. I try to go back to the same schools and the same classrooms as much as I can. And they know me, I know them, and we pretty much like each other. So, and then since COVID, I have not been in the classrooms, but I might be going back sometime soon. So that's about it.
Hi, my name is Marcy Begleiter. I was a mentor here at LOMS last year and have decided to stay here because I like it so much and the kids were great, and Carl runs a great ship over here. I'm the first person in my family to receive a 4-year college degree, and my brother and I both went on to get master's degrees as well. When I was in high school, there was definitely a commitment to get a college degree, but that was kind of all. Since neither of my parents had gone, there wasn't a lot of detail, right? And there wasn't a lot of, I went to a very large high school, and there also wasn't a lot of individual support there, which would have been nice. I mean, I eventually ended up where I needed to go, but certainly having a bigger support system at the entry level would have been extremely helpful. So that's one of the reasons when I heard about the program, I decided to join. I grew up in New York, I lived in LA for a really long time, I've lived here for about 4 years, and I was looking for a way to connect to the community, and so this was a wonderful way to do it. My background after I went to college is I became a designer for theater and film, and then eventually worked my way into being a college professor, both undergraduate and graduate degree in that field, but it was film, design, and fine art. And I worked in conservatory universities and colleges in Los Angeles and also in Germany. So I've kind of gone back and forth quite a bit in my career. So I would say I'm retired from teaching. I'm not teaching full-time any longer, but I'm still, like, during COVID, I got together with a bunch of kids from the neighborhood, and I did drawing classes. I mean, I really do enjoy that kind of back and forth. Let's see, what else anything else about me? Really, what I'm here today is to kind of talk to you about what my experience was last year in this program. One thing that became very clear from the get-go when we talked to the kids, and again, I'm talking about, I had 5. There were 3 mentors and there were 5 kids. And the number of kids who were there of their own volition in my group was 0. Every one of those kids was there because either the parents or the grandparents, their guardians, had said, that's a program you should be part of, go. So they were, oh, what are you going to, they were, kind of willing, because they were, quite frankly, this particular group of kids, they were good kids. They were going to do what their guardians asked them to do, and they would participate. And really, one of our big goals during that year together was to transform them from kind of being drafted into the program to being enrolled, right? And to having a feeling that they were there for themselves and not just to make the adults around them happy. And it took a while. They were, not again, our group and other groups had different experience. We had some shy kids. And what we did, what we felt ended up breaking through was, number one, we tried to make it as personal as possible. The program will give you, it's very, very well organized, every single one of the meetings, down to the minute. But I'll have to say, we took those as suggestions and not, like military orders. So we were able to really kind of respond to the kids that were in our group. If we needed more time to get them kind of engaged, we would take more time. We also found it really helpful, even though a lot of the exercises were group exercises, we broke off into smaller groups so that we could have like connections with them, individual connections with them. And again, it was just sort of, we decided to be a little looser. I don't know if Dan's happy with me telling you that.
No, that's great.
It's fine.
I think, Marcy, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
the challenges last year were incredible. Like, we decided we were gonna push this program through, and we couldn't even have kids on campus, right? And we had protocols, and we Zoomed, which was just about ready to lose every mentor, I think, because Zooming is just, and, you know, your kids were, this is what you saw, the top of their forehead, right? That's the game a lot of them played. And so the challenges last year were incredible. And then we got to the place where we could have kids on campus. And I think that opened the door.
Yeah, and I'll have to say, I am not anti-Zoom. We had one of our most interesting connections or sessions with the kids on Zoom because they were at home and they were in their bedrooms. And one of the things we asked them to choose an object. So this was like our icebreaker. So choose an object from your room and do like a 3-minute sketch of that object and then tell us a story about why you chose that object. And it was really interesting in terms of getting them to reveal, you know, what was important to them, you know, who they were sort of outside. And so, you know, hopefully we won't go back to the Zoom days, but, you know, it was possible. There were other opportunities there. What else do I want to say about being together in this? Great way to connect to your community, and I was really happy to meet all the adults as well as the kids. But really, bottom line, to be able to make a personal connection with kids who are like, you're adults, you're strangers, you know, and how do you get past that? The more personal, you know, the more personal the story, the more personal, like, I had this struggle. I had this way around it. I was able to, and then talking about, you know, college is just the road. That's not the destination, right? College is going to help you get to where you want to be. It's not, you know, hopefully you're there for just as much time as you're going to get your degree, and then you're going to go to start the real part of your life, which is, you know, going to be open and exciting, and hopefully, you know, you will discover passions. Maybe you already have your passion. Most of the kids who we dealt with did not have. I think 2 out of the 5 had some inkling of what they might want to do. But most of them were like, I like basketball. You know, I like soccer. I like my dog. And then sort of getting from that to a conversation about what do you want to do for a career, you know, was a challenge. But also, again, I think 8th grade in terms of this program, which is envisioned as a 5-year program, you know, this is the intro. This is the intro year. So just about like getting them to feel good enough about it that they'll sign up when they're at high school. Anything else? All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Marcy Begleiter. Where'd it go? Oh, I put it on my jacket. It was on my back. Marcy.
Thank you, Marcy. She's so modest and humble. She didn't mention that she's an artist and a writer, and she came up with that ice-breaking idea in the middle of a pandemic. We were tearing our hair out trying to figure out how do we get these kids. They're Zooming all week, you know, it's a Saturday morning, blah, blah, blah. And she came up with this brilliant idea, and that may, Ellie, and that might be the reason that that Everett's mentors got to know so much about his interest in spiders, I think. Maybe. He might have chosen that. But she's right. You know, and there's the Zoom, you have to be careful in people's houses, you know, and we got consent to do that. But to have them at home and have an object and start talking about it was absolutely brilliant. And so now you know why we love that she's coming back and shared your story with you. So, Carl.
All righty. We got a couple things that are going to start happening here right now. First thing is I wanted to show you, in case you're interested. Oh, they'll start listening in a minute when I start handing out gift cards and stuff. See, they all got quiet, but I don't have any gift cards, sorry. Wanted to share with you the website that Dan's put together, College Bound Today. If you need more information, this has tons of info around the program and the history of the program, scholarships that they did. It's super well put together, and the best part is, like, there's our fence here at LOMS, you know? So we're the front and center of the program. So in a minute, John Heading, who's the mayor of Morro Bay, is going to be here. He's also a former hospital administrator and a pharmacologist or pharmacist. He owned a Morro Bay pharmacy, I think, for a long time. He's going to be here, and he's going to be taking care of TB tests. So we'll have people step into the back room. It's now a very short question and answer session. It's not. You don't have to have the prick on your arm and the smiley face, and if the nose turns red, you're in trouble. So that's the last time I remember TB test. So he'll be here, and we'll be asking you one at a time to step back and go through the questionnaire with him. He's also going to talk a little bit about himself and why he values this program, because I believe he's a first-generation college student also. The other piece, we're going to have Ace and Maribel start here talking a little bit about the format of the meetings and the discussion guides and how it works. And so we'll be doing that as you're stepping back. You're just going to step back into that office back there for the TB questionnaire, and then we'll move forward on that. Yes.
One thing on the TB, if you have had a TB clearance before, please be advised it's only good for 2 years. So I got mine done last year. I'm doing it again. It's free. Get it done, then I've got 2 years instead of 1. So up to you. But it doesn't take much time, and if you want to work in schools, it's one of the things you got to do.
So one other piece I just wanted to share out is kind of the messaging that's been going out to parents pretty aggressively. You know, I put this out in our weekly newsletters. I put it front and center in something that we do for our EL and our RFEP families. Just so you know, EL is English language learner families, and RFEP are reclassified students who have passed the language proficiency exam, but we still support them. And so this is just one of the articles in what we call dual language news here at LOMS. We realize that it shouldn't be just called English learners, because I just think that that's not the best of what it is. I think they're dual language learners, right? Just as primary English speaker is going to come here to learn Spanish, they're dual language learners. So all of our kids that are in the EL program or the RFEP, or have been in EL and are RFEP, or in taking Spanish 1 or 2 here, are dual language learners. We kind of look at that as more a holistic way. So this is from our EL language news that goes out about once a month, letting families know about what programs are happening. And just so you're aware, that's kind of how we message them. And then, like I said, I've talked to the AVID classes. My AVID teachers are reaching out. We've got a lot of signups. I go around and then I start targeting kids, and I say, "Oh, I see you went to the bathroom. Let's go have a talk over here in the quad before you go back to class." And I start recruiting them, and we're going to have a good class for you all. So I'm going to hand this over to Andy and Maribel. Like I said, I'm going to go out and look for John Heading, because I know he's here. But when John gets here, if you guys want to pause, give him the microphone for a second, and then we'll jump back into what a meeting looks like.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pull this down a little bit, because otherwise you'll just hear me mumble. Come on over, Andy. Don't leave me alone on this one. So again, thank you so much for being here. You took like an inch step. So appreciate having you here on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., right? But this is super important, and I know for me too, having gone through some of these mentorship programs as a high schooler, here I am now, right? And so I really, really appreciate it, and can speak for the kids. So as far as the discussion guides, I think Marcy, we keep saying Marcy couldn't have said it better. they are your guide. They are kind of like, yes, it says like, 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, but it's more of a suggestion. So you kind of have a sense of, the flow of your day, of that, those 90 minutes that you'll have with our students. But by no means do you feel like you have to stick to that and then like, oh, we're, we have 1 more minute for this activity. No, if you're into a conversation, keep it going. Don't feel like you have to stop your conversation just because it says that, you only had 10 minutes on that one. So feel free to use it as a guide, right? That's what's called a guide. But to change it up, if you feel like the icebreaker that we might have seems a little bit boring or seems like it's just not going to fit the group that you have, and you might have something in mind, go for it. Feel free. We kind of the general makeup of the discussion guide is obviously starting off with, everyone together. We just say, hey, how's everyone doing? A brief welcome kind of thing. And then one of the things that has now been incorporated. Oh, pause.
Stand here, say hello. Morning. How are you? On this process. Good. Thanks. Morning. You guys had a bunch of coffee. I see. A medical background, so I can see hypercaffeination. Usually it's like this, or hypocaffeination is kind of when you do a little bit of that. So I'll be doing your TB screening today. It's very simple. No longer do we have to stick you unless you don't meet the criteria, and about 99.5% of folks actually do meet the criteria. So it'll be quick and easy for you. But Carl asked me and Dan to share a little bit about my journey. I'm a first generation a college graduate in the family. My father grew up working in the cotton fields and in ag, picking crops, moving from place to place. When he was 17, he figured that he'd had enough of that, didn't like that life, and he lied about his age and went into the Marine Corps in order to serve in World War II, and he did that. What's that? I think the cotton fields, doing ag like that. It was tough on the family. He had 8 siblings, a dad who really wasn't present a lot, and mom kind of, carried the family. And they moved from place to place. And it was, in fact, growing up as a child, he would never take us camping. He didn't ever want to camp because it reminded him, of his youth and that childhood. Anyway, he got as far as 8th grade, was a pretty smart guy, and ended up working for went into Marines, did well, of course, came out, met my mom. My mom was a 1-year junior college attendee, and then became a medical assistant through a program through industry. Then she worked for Dow Chemical in Pittsburgh, California, and became a medical assistant there. So no college background, but because I did well in school and excelled, my father could basically build or do anything. He was very handy with his hands. He built our house. He repaired all of the automobiles that we had, and he could fix anything, but he would never let me help him. And he was afraid that I might follow in his footsteps and not go to college. And he actually said that to me at one time. I said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you teach me how to do this?" And he said, "No, you're going to college. You're smart." Now, I didn't know what that meant because, I was a young child when he was saying that to me. But I knew that he wanted me to have a better life. My mother was kind of the champion of the kids in the family. I have one sister and myself. And she also wanted me to go to college. And I got a job working first when I was about 12 years old in a school program. In the summer, cleaning blackboards, cleaning desks, and doing janitorial work. I made $120 when I was 12. I remember that. And man, I thought I was rich. And I learned to save. I learned then to save. I didn't spend it all, but I saved. When I was 16, my mom knew the pharmacist at the local Rexall drugstore in town and talked to them and said, hey, do you need any help cleaning toilets? And they said, well, yeah, we could use a stock person and a toilet cleaner. And so she said, well, I have a son who's 16, and he would love to come to work for you. Now, she didn't ask me first, but, she had it all set up. So I went to work way back when for $1.10 an hour. I remember that. It was $1.10 an hour. I cleaned the toilets. I dusted the shelves. Then I believe the two pharmacists who were University of the Pacific graduates in Stockton, California, saw aptitude in me. I think they recognized, fortunately, that I was bright and could learn quickly. And in those days, there weren't a lot of laws prohibiting you from being behind the counter. So they allowed me to not only clean toilets and stock the shelves, but then move up to actually coming behind the counter and assisting them with some of the, what we now call pharmacy technician kinds of chores that they do. And that does require licensure today. And so I went from $1.10, I got promoted to $1.20. And I saved a lot of money, and I bought my first car on my own, 1956 Chevy. I lowered it to the ground, put chrome rims on it, had my 8-track player, which was stolen 3 or 4 times in the day. They were so easy to steal. And I was cool. And I was on my way. But I just want to tell you, I learned a work ethic that became extremely important to me very young. I learned the power of money, I must tell you that. Not the power of materialism, but what the appropriate use of money and handling money could do for an individual. And I also learned that I had opportunities with regard to upward mobility. I became mentored by those two pharmacists that own a chain of 5 pharmacies at that time. They said, you're going to pharmacy school? I said, man, that sounds great. I think I'm going to do it, because I saw what they had and what they could do. As a result of that, I did go to UOP, School of Pharmacy, got a bachelor's degree in pharmacy. Then I went back and got a doctorate 5 years later while working. That's crazy, but while working. And then in 1994, I didn't tell you when I graduated from college the first time, because then you'd know how old I am. In 1994, I had 2 girls, 2 daughters, a wife, and I decided to go back and get a master's degree in business administration. I had worked as a pharmacist, a director of pharmacy, and got promoted to hospital administrator. And you kind of needed to have an MBA if you were going to do that. So I went to the University of Colorado, an executive program, as an adult, working full-time, doing one of the first, I think, extension programs. We had to fly into campus 3 times a year for 2 years, so for 2 weeks each, and then the rest of it we did online. Great learning experience. They were all healthcare professionals. Got my MBA in addition to that. Did hospital administration, was a CEO for about 20 years in the Valley, and then I found the Central Coast of California. I retired. I retired to Cambria. Immediately bought a pharmacy. Now, why do you do that in retirement? I don't know. And so we owned Cambria Drug and Gift for 7 years. And I built, in 2010, I opened Morro Bay Drug and Gift. Built it brand new and started that in retirement. So I'm now retired. However, I got into politics, ran for city council about 7 years ago in Morro Bay, was elected, and now I'm in my second term as mayor of the city of Morro Bay. So maybe more than you wanted, but just a little bit of my journey, going from a dad who said, nah, you're not going to do what I did, which would have been fine. I mean, he provided for us. We were middle class. They did well. And a mom that said, you can do it, and you need to go to college. And then mentors along the way. Very helpful to have those 2 gentlemen in my life that owned those chain of 5 drugstores to teach me what life could bring you with education. So, nice to meet you all. I'm here. Oh, did I tell you we don't have to stick you with the thing, but we do have to give you an injection. So that's just to sedate you when I ask the questions. You still draw the smiley face? Wait, smiley face, yeah. Yeah, here it is. Okay, where do we want me to go from here, sir?
We're gonna come back here, we'll just have them peel off one at a time, come back and interview and move on. So Maribel and Ace, if you guys wanna jump back in? You guys want to back here? Yeah, good.
Sure, and then I'll hand it to you. Oh, it is. All right, so we were talking about the discussion guide, how you make it your own, and then what I was going to say was that this year it seems like we'll have probably more guest speakers, so probably one each time that we get to meet, which is amazing. I love that because I think that our students need to hear some of these success stories from people in our community as well, and many of them actually mentors. So, any questions so far? No. And then, of course, you know, we always have these topics for you to discuss with some questions or some guiding questions. And again, you might ask the first question and that might be your entire time that you're going to be talking about that. And so you may not get to, for example, I'm looking at the discussion guide for our first meeting and there's like 5 questions. Well, you may not get to those 5. You may get to the first one and find that the discussion is going very, very well and you know, maybe that's it. That's all you got to, and that's okay. Or maybe you need to go through all 5 of those. Maggie. Sure. So I'm just looking here at the discussion guide. So once you get to this, you know, second half of the session, you're talking about self-advocacy skills, and you know that's the type of discussion you're having. And then one of the questions is like, what are some of the subjects that you can improve on? And maybe so that could lead to, well, you know, there's this class that I'm not doing as well in, and then, you know, kind of go from there. And then, so then there's like questions like, what do I feel comfortable talking, or who do I feel comfortable talking to about this? So maybe they're going to say their teacher, or maybe their principal, the school counselor, or maybe they're like, I don't know who to talk to. And so you can kind of start to guide them in that discussion as well. So does that answer? Okay. So again, I don't want to spend too much time on the specifics of the discussion guide, but I think just in general, you know, we welcome the students. We have some sort of icebreaker, whether it be something with movement, maybe you want to incorporate some art in there. Maybe it's just like, hey, how's everyone doing? Just a quick check-in with them. Then having some sort of discussion within your group, you know, and we'll have the general topic and you can kind of take it from there. And then we come back as a whole group and just check in. How did it go for you today? Any type of announcements that we might have, let them know of the next meeting date and time. So we try to not to make it also too long, right? So these 90 minutes, and that's about as much as they can handle. And you're trying to pry information or, you know, talk to them. So, all right, I'll let Andy take the next part. No, with them at 10. Yes.
Yeah,
The adults, we get together at 9, go over the discussion guide, and then they start to revive around 10.
Okay. All right, let's get to the nitty-gritty here. We got 8th graders. You either as a parent had your 8th grader, or you can remember back to the 8th grade. I mean, are the students, not necessarily yours, but are the students thinking about college at this point? No. You know, chances are they're not really thinking. They're phone and, you know, trying to communicate and things like that. So this is the type of stuff or the situation that you're going to come into, you know. Obviously, they don't know there's maybe from a sibling or something. There's geometry, algebra, there's world history they have to take. They have the courses that they have to adhere to. So my big thing is in kind of starting, and I'm glad it started in the 8th grade. Usually we start, our original program starts 2nd semester of the 10th grade, okay? And in that point, we had criteria to look at, okay? Right now, we're bringing everyone in, Okay, not necessarily they're going to do well on a PSAT or SAT score, not necessarily well they're going to finish their 3 years of math that are required to graduate from high school and so on and so forth. So we're getting a all-campus type of student here, okay? And not that we're weeding out anyone or anything at this point, but once we get to the high school, okay, and this is the direction that we're trying to, and in that direction that we're trying to get the student to, by the time they get to the 10th grade or so, or 9th, 10th grade, is to start thinking about going to school. So the few sessions that you have here, six sessions I think you have with students, it's to get them thinking. Okay, and that's basically the chore through weather, and it doesn't have to be about college. This table here, I listened to Liz here, and I think it was Lisa, and it was a thing of, as she's growing up, she's trying everything. I mean, in her jobs, different jobs, we're trying everything, you know, and finding something that is really applicable to you, you know, who makes you, what makes you, okay? Now, these kids aren't thinking that yet, or majority of them, okay, are not thinking about that, but that's one trick or one way we need to start working on, is how we're going to try to expand their minds a little bit on you know, there's something else. It's kind of like, okay, let's get serious now. You know, where are we going in life? What's my goal in 5 years? Where, you know, obviously I'll try to graduate from high school, you know, but beyond that, where are we going? And this is the important thing. I started out as a 7th, 8th grade counselor for 8 years, okay? And it was different. I mean, wherever situation or city you go to, there's different issues, okay? Mine was toluene. That's the stuff in the paints or the glues and stuff like that, you know? So those were issues. How do you work with those kids and so on? And I'm not saying that's here, but there's maybe different, just the way the students grow up here, the families and so on. We don't know all of them intimately as we should do, I guess. But as a counselor, you know, or even as a teacher, you educators here, you don't know what happened in the morning, who's yelling in the morning at the kid, get ready, and or the night before they had to be the family had to be in the hospital emergency, you know, and then they didn't turn in their assignment, and you're on, or the teacher's on them, or making them, you know, singling them out, or so, whatever. But see, that's what we get, and I always try to figure out, you know, work with teachers and you know, how can we soften that? How can we work with that? You know, because we don't know these students. We don't know. We know basically kind of a generic view of their family, but we don't know the issues, and we have issues. Okay, we have issues that happen, and so on and so forth. So basically, again, Dan mentioned you're not tutoring. That's not the job here. Okay, the work here. The work is to try to get them to talk, because they're not going to talk. Jim, you work with AVID students. I mean, you probably come across some that you know, and it's been mentioned here. You got to pull it out a little bit, you know. And then the students don't go home and tell their parents anything, you know. And as you get older, as this high school gets older, and we work with the high school, when it comes to application time, when it comes to financial aid time, you know, they don't mention that. I says, this is your partner. This is the one that's going to be paying for you. This is the one. So you better be nice to them and let them know what's going on. You know, so, but that's down the road. That's down the road with a little more maturity and so on in the student. And again, you are so valuable once you feel you make that connection with one student, two students, all 5 students, all 6 students, whatever's in your group, you are I mean, it's just, you're going to see it, you're going to feel it, that it's there, that, okay, they're starting to think a little bit. You know, that one kid didn't say anything, maybe it's saying something else, you know. We leave it to you, the wizards, to come up, you know, again, we put something out there, but again, it doesn't have to be followed. Okay, if you come up, if we can get you the discussion guide a week or a few days before, maybe the 3 of you can communicate with each other. Hey, I got this idea. I'm looking at the discussion guide. Why don't we try this? Oh, I would like to try this. You know, so the communication is not just once a month with the student. We're hoping that if we all have busy schedules, if the 3 of you can communicate with each other, come up, once you get the discussion plan, kind of see what it's about. If we could have it to you 2 weeks, a week and a half ahead, I mean, that just gives you more time to communicate. So that's basically where we're coming from. And as mentors, and if you can go with us to the 9th grade, you're going to see, you know, hopefully that communication is better. And then now we can start seeing, well, you need to take this class, you need to take this class. Carl, I don't know if this could happen. I don't know if the legality of it. We did it at my school because we had parent and school commitment that says, but like their progress reports. The first meeting, it would be nice for them to have a progress of your student, to see how they're doing.
Yeah, so we can do that. We can share out, because part of the confidentiality mentor agreement you signed was that parents know their kids are, you're going to have potential access to progress reports and things like that.
Yeah.
Not few folders, of course.
No, just the progress.
Just a snapshot of where they are.
Yeah, for 9 weeks, or what do they do every 9? Yeah. So, and that's what I used to use, but we used to do semesters, because that's where it really counts in the high school, the semester grade. We used to do that when we met with the parents at the beginning of the year, every year, and then at the semester, after the semester time, we'd give them their child's, because although they see it, but how much time do some of them pay attention to it, you know, and really talk to their student about it, or so on and so forth. So that type of communication, that type of acknowledgement and awareness is something. So Maribel mentioned something to the social emotional. This is the part that is open to the, you know, that this is what we're trying to get across at this point, you know, how to work with others, Carl mentioned is to advocate for yourself, you know, because part of that application at the end for college is tell me about you. And this is where the student has that. If they feel comfortable with themselves, they can, you know, with the help of their school people, their English teachers and so on, can express that in writing. All right, so I think that's all. Is there anything else I missed? But throw out some questions or idea that the 4 of us can answer that just have to do with the type of student. Are you nervous? You know, maybe right now, but maybe next month when the kids, when you're going to meet, and then parents and so on. That's an important thing. Okay. Well, I don't think we went over this part. Okay. Question. Yeah.
How often do we communicate with the parent?
Okay.
They come to that first meeting, but if there are other times, and are we supposed to tell them,
I think the plan, if I heard Carl correctly, that he's the authority on this, is we will certainly meet the first meeting, so they'll get to, by team, we'll all meet from 9 to 10 together. 10 o'clock, parents and students show up. We'll have I'll probably be out in the courtyard, and we'll have a meet, you know, Carl, we'll say a few words, 10 minutes or so, explain what's going to happen. Then each team of 3 mentors will go to a corner and all your students and their parents will be able to sit or stand near you, and you'll have your team meetings there for a period of time. Then we'll stop by each meeting and ask the parents to come with us, maybe here or wherever Carl designates, for a parent meeting. And that's where we really can help the parents understand that our program is designed to partner with them, that we realize that they are the foundation of every student, and the student wouldn't be here without them. Their love and support financially, with a roof over their heads, etc. And we want to bring the parents the same information about college that we bring the students. Why? Because we want them to start conversations in the home or on vacations or whatever about the whole college application process. And for those parents who didn't go to college, they kind of feel a little inadequate, or they feel like, how am I supposed to help my child navigate a terrain that I've never been on myself? You know, it's a tough situation. I've talked with parents like that. I just can barely imagine what it's like. So we want them to know that they'll be learning from us. They'll be going to college campuses with their kids. And as time goes by, we want them to pay attention to how their child relates to a campus they see. They're all different. They're like snowflakes, as you know. Some kids say, big city, that's for me. Others say, no, I don't want it in the country. Now, they got a good volleyball program. Their science, so they have to start working with their kids to develop a profile of the things they like and things they don't like. And then, testing, of course, the SAT, looks like the UCs are doing away with that. But personal statements, this whole process, we try to explain to the parents. And for those who are Spanish speakers, we have Jose and Andy can help with that, or we can get a mentor to translate at the parent meeting live. Takes a little longer, but because we want all the parents to know they're welcome here and they're an important part of our program, and we are here to help them and partner with them. This is not something to just send a kid off and catch you later, because this is a family endeavor, very important for the students. And although we emphasize the importance of a 4-year college or university education, we ultimately will embrace whatever the decision any student makes. Join the workforce, the military, 2-year institution, 4-year. That's up to them. Well, we want the parents and the students to get informed about the advantages of a 4-year and how you go about it, and actually it's affordable. And we sent kids to the Ivy League for less money than East Los Angeles College would have cost them. So that's not for everybody, but the kids, so for each student it's going to be different. So anyway, so that's the, so we do the parents while you're having your first roundtable discussion with your students. And then when we're done, parents come back and meeting's over. Yeah. And believe me, if you get a question like that, that's a godsend. You're right there. I mean, that's like the gateway is open, and you got one student who's interested, and then the trick is for you and your colleagues to bring the others along and to build on that. But absolutely.
And I think what you're asking, Sheridan, is that if you're going to want to, as mentors, want to know, what does it take to get into Cuesta College? What is the Promise Grant? Things like that, right? So we'll make sure, we'll give you some, I think this is just something we didn't do last year, but it just dawned on me that we can give you some key little things, about basically definitions, like getting into community college. Anybody can enter. Promise Grant is available for any student that wants to stay on a 2-year contract to follow a course that would put them towards their AA at the end of the 2 years, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, any of you Cuesta folk. But, and then we could talk a little bit about how the UCs, and this is what we talk about in the 4-year plans with kids, is how the difference between the Cal State and the UC requirements, how the difference between a requirement for Stanford versus a UC. And we kind of we share with them, like, you know, there's the college path, there's the 4-year college path, there's the exceptional college path. Like Cal Poly, you have to do more than the A to G requirements to get in. Like recommended is 3 years of math. Basically suggested, and if you don't do it, you're not getting in, 4 years of math. So we can share some of the things that we do with our 4-year plan talks with kids too, and give you a skeleton outline of that, and that'll help in some of these broader conversations. Okay?
Now, College Bound today is new here, but we're in the process of forming a strong alliance with Cuesta College. And we've got a math teacher here, and we've got a financial aid person. Glenda Moscoso, who is not here, she's one of the high-ranking counselors over there. She's on our advisory board, as is Jim. And my goal is to work in at the appropriate time, probably in high school, for every kid. It's similar to college and career pathways. The philosophy is you prepare every kid for both college and career, and then they decide when they're done. So I want every kid in this program to know a lot about Cuesta, and I also want them to know a lot about 4-year colleges. And maybe by the time, and then, so, and the Berto, his last name is Marroquin, he's one of our mentors. He's running the Cuesta Promise program now. He's one of our mentors at the high school. So we're going to do what we can. There's already programs that Cuesta has with the high schools, but I want to get us involved and really strengthen that so that it's a pipeline from here to Morro Bay to Cuesta. 68% of the kids who graduate from Morro Bay High School go to Cuesta, all right? That was two years ago. So it's a better than 50% chance that any kid you're working with next month is going to go to Cuesta, or if they don't, they're going to want to know about it. So it's kind of a delicate dance between they got to know about the 2-year Cuesta because it's such a great opportunity, but they also need to know that the 4-year is a good opportunity too for different reasons. We want to integrate both of those into the program. And if this is a 5-year mentoring program, which you won't find in any other district to my knowledge.
Yeah, they do have some classes that are dual enrollment. I think there's sciences and with stats. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I've had a couple more types of students.
Excellent. That's great. Yes.
Especially now in the pandemic, kind of is online.
Right. David?
So I don't know a heck of a lot about the entry requirements for Cuesta and things like that. Are we going to learn that?
That's what, yeah, I'm going to get you guys a little cheat sheet for things like that. And, you know, I think the neat thing is with Glenda coming to talk about her specific pathway, which is pretty amazing pathway to where she's at. Maybe Berto, we'll get him and talk about the Promise Grant as a guest speaker in one of our things. We want to try to start every session with a guest speaker too, because I think it's just valuable. And I'll tell you, the kids that sit down with us for the 4-year plans, when they talk about going to college, I'd say probably 50% of them are very aware of the Cuesta Promise Grant. Like it's out there, that has been marketed well. They either have siblings or family members that have gone there and have taken advantage of it. So we'll get that info shared out to you because really, you know, you're learning a lot too as you're going to be sharing out your own personal experiences with kids. Yes?
Would that be something that you guys would address when you have the parents one-on-one? Because if the parents know about it and we're telling the kids about
Right.
it, then there's a common language.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay. We'll you know, our parent piece is going to be similar to this meeting here, talking about it, but plugging in specifics in our community, so that they're aware of some of the things the objectives we have for kids in the long 5-year plan. And it'll be a good pump for me too to talk about our 4-year plans that'll be coming up for their kids starting in January, so they are aware of that. And you can see all this stuff is just kind of like blends itself into a common pathway for kids. Really, it's about student success.
Well, the thing that appeals to me about this program is that you have hopefully motivated students, or will become motivated students, and you have a support system in the parents that they want their kids to be doing this. But if they know a lot of the specifics as well, then that's the conversation they can be having.
Yeah, and I think that as much as we are going to, this is what Marcy shared, what Andy said, as much as we're going to be sharing with you things to talk with the kids about and discussion guides, know that there's a level of frustration at the beginning because the kids are quiet. They are not sure of what's happening. They're like, Dan or Marcy said, most of them are here because their parents are being good parents and saying, you need to go to this and check this out. Or their principal has been leaning on them to give it a try, please, right? So that the process of their education, and then the parents too, for some parents, this is going to be an eye-opener of opportunity, a blistering of information that we'll have to follow up with messages and feedback and support and handouts through Parent Square or whatever. I wanted to address something about Parent Square. I showed you kind of our promo there, and I know that, Ellie, you asked a question about stuff being translated. If you are a Parent Square receiver and you click the Spanish translation, you automatically get everything on that screen in Spanish. So I don't have to have my translator at school go through it. It's automatically fires out. That's the beauty of why the district went with that platform, was so that we can buy language packages. We have a large Filipino population here in the community. I don't know if that's a package yet that they've bought. I don't think the need has been as great, but I know there are families that are speaking Tagalog and that's their native home language. And we are getting a larger Arabic community growing. And so I know that when we start getting up to kind of critical mass and numbers, they'll add those things in, and parents, they'll be able to pick what their language is at home and click the button, and it all comes across translated nicely. Yes?
What if somebody is not on the web, or they don't have access to that? How do you get this?
Well, the neat thing that we've done is we have asked parents and our families who has access and who does not. And virtually all of our families have access, whether it's through their phones, where most people have their access now, because cell phones have become kind of the common denominator of computer access, right? So they get Parent Square in a cell phone friendly pop on their iPhone or their Android, and we know that virtually almost all of our families are having access, and if they're not, we'll find out and we'll send them paper copies of everything we're doing. Yep. Oh yeah, that was a big piece, right? We had a lot of that, troubleshooting that through the pandemic. So I think we're kind of wrapping up. I wanted to go into some of the meeting logistics here, just so you're aware. Dan was alluding I think we'll meet in the quad. So we are, weather's like this, it's 9 o'clock, the kids get here at 10, we'll be meeting outside in the quad. If we get into bad weather, we'll open up our big, huge cafeteria and have 4 corners for students and mentors to meet. If we have parents coming in on one of these days and it's bad weather, I'll take the parents into the gym or in here to the library, depending on the number that show up. So we have all these methods of our physical process of meeting, okay? But basically the quad that you entered from the parking lot by the solar panels is what we call the main quad, and that's where we'll be starting all of our meetings. Now, if it's cold at 9 o'clock when we get here, we can always come in here as mentors and then move out, at 9:45 and greet the kids. But again, we are still under many not social distancing rules, but kind of COVID rules with masks and stuff. And so as volunteers on campuses, that's why I appreciate you all getting turning in your vaccine cards and the things you have to do. We have to have that for volunteers. I, as principal, made a decision that I was not going to have non-vaccinated volunteers on this campus. I think it's important. I know that other schools do things differently and they choose their own paths, but I just felt like our employees, we can ask them to show testing if they're not vaccinated, and that's a fair thing that happens for a percentage of it. But for most people, you have to know that almost all of our district is vaccinated and moving down the positive road, because that's our district message. Vaccination is part of the way we get out of this thing. So, but we'll be meeting there. You have to have masks on campus. I think if you're talking and you're feeling uncomfortable, you can pull your mask down to talk to a kid, and especially in your outside. Our rules outside are that kids and adults on campus do not have to wear a mask. Thankfully, my gosh, I can't wait till I go. I used to be like, oh, I've got break duty and lunch duty. Now it's like, I got break duty and lunch duty. My mask's coming off, right on. I'm out of the office. So it's awesome. So that's really our protocols. You can park out by the solar panels. You can park in the front of the school. There's plenty of parking anywhere. We are really the only thing happening on a Saturday at a middle school. You saw today there are some kids here for sports teams practicing, go getting it because they want to be good. But that's kind of our process. And if you have, let me go through this real quick. If we're here and we have a meeting on a Saturday and I get a call about a kid that has COVID on Monday, I will alert the people in the team that, hey, one of the kids that was here on Saturday came down with symptoms on Sunday or Monday. You'll all be alerted, but the protocol and how it works is if you're vaccinated and you have no symptoms, if you're a student, you come right to school as a close contact. Because we know that most of this, wearing masks, and even all the cases, literally less than a handful of cases on our campus where we've had a kid that we've had to send home and then they test positive, there's no transmission. We haven't had one transmission on campus, which is awesome, right? You read about in the paper, there's 1,100 cases of COVID in the schools in San Luis County. But we have not at this school, and in most of our schools in San Luis Coastal, because of mask wearing, because of protocols that we're doing, we don't have this COVID to COVID, student to student transmission. But you'll be notified, and we'll let you know, and as long as you don't develop symptoms, then you're considered a close contact, but there's no change in what you do. Now, we're only meeting monthly, but I would notify you because that's the right thing for all of you to know, and I have to notify the other kids in the group so those parents are aware, because some kids might not be vaccinated. The unvaccinated kid who's a close contact has to take a PCR test and have no symptoms, right? They can come to school then. But if they choose not to take a PCR test, then they have to stay out for 10 days. That's just the protocols. That's determined by county health. That's not Carl Bloom, that's not San Luis Coastal. We follow county health guidelines to a T.
So what is a PCR test?
That's the one where you go and to the Vets Hall at San Luis. They go up there, right? Up your nose pretty far, and then they send it off to a lab. The rapid test, which is the one that we can now do for kids here, if they're close contacts and they have no symptoms, is just a self-swab into the little card, and we close it, and I do the magic with the drops, and we figure out, hey, you have no symptoms and you're negative on that, then you're good to come back to school that way. But for, if they can't do a self-swab test at home. That's one of the rules of county public health. The self-swab test must be administered by a school district official at a school site. The PCR test is a county-based, lab-based test. It's probably the most accurate, and so they go down that road. So I wanted you to be aware that all the COVID protocols we're having for kids and all the processes and procedures, you will get all the information if we have a close contact. But I will tell you, we have not had very many close contact cases. Most of the time that kids get sick and are staying home, they're testing and they're coming back as soon as they've finished their test because it's not COVID. They have a cold, they have the flu, they whatever, right? But because COVID symptoms are common with just about every other ailment you can get, it all gets lumped into that part for parents that becomes so challenging, right? So we've been very lucky, and I think it's part of a testament to our community that the majority, I think we have like 67% of our 7th and 8th graders are fully vaccinated, which is awesome. Obviously 6th graders here can't get vaccinated, or now they can, and will be interesting to see as we're uploading and taking vaccine cards from them, where we're at with our 6th grade group. And we're advocating it for, 5 and up. So 5 and up. So that's how we're working as a school district to support, but I believe it's just reflective of a community. And we're lucky in our county right now. Where other places are kind of blowing up, our county is still, we're averaging less than right around 10 cases per 100,000 per day, which is just about dropping down into what they consider a next level down. So keep our fingers crossed, because we want school to get back to more normal. We want to get rid of these masks. That's all I have. We're finishing up with John.